I once heard a Hasidic tale of 30 righteous people. These 30 righteous people, it is said, were holding the world together. Now, they didn't know they were holding the world together, and they weren't special people. They were faithful people, prayerful people, people who were trying their best each day to do God's will and work. But they were indeed holding the world together. They didn't know each other, and they didn't know what they were doing, but they were holding the world together. Now, when a person in that group of faithful people of 30 died, God would raise up another person, because God always needed those 30 faithful people to help hold the world together. 30 people that the world did not even know at all. When God made a covenant with Israel, God's covenant was conditional. It was conditional on Israel's faithfulness. And God sealed that covenant by delivering the people out from Egypt into the wilderness and finally into the promised land. But in our story for today, we encounter a very dark moment in the history of those God's people. It was a moment when the people were not faithful. Who will help Israel? Who will hold Israel together when Israel is not faithful? Listen with me to this story of Moses, of God, and of the people in Exodus chapter 32, starting with verse 1. When the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, the people gathered around Aaron and said to him, "Come, make gods for us, who shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us up from the land of Egypt, we do not know what has happened to him." Aaron said to them, "Take off the gold rings that are on the ears of your wives, your sons, your daughters, and bring them to me." So all the people took off the gold rings from their ears and brought them to Aaron. He took the gold from them, formed it into a mold, and cast an image of a calf. And they said, "These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt." When Aaron saw this, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made proclamation and said, "Tomorrow shall be a festival to the Lord." They rose early the next day and offered burnt offerings and brought sacrifices of well-being. And the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to revel. The Lord said to Moses, "Go down at once. Your people, whom you brought up out of the land of Egypt, have acted perversely. They have been quick to turn away from the way I commanded them. They have cast for themselves an image of a calf and have worshipped it and sacrificed to it and said, 'These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt.' The Lord said to Moses, 'I have seen this people, how stiff-necked they are. Now let me alone, so that my wrath may burn hot against them, and I may consume them. And of you I will make a great nation.' But Moses implored the Lord, his God, and said, 'O Lord, why does your wrath burn hot against your people, whom you brought out of the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand? Why should the Egyptians say, it was with evil intent that he brought them out to kill them in the mountains and to consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from your fierce wrath, change your mind, and do not bring disaster on your people. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your servants, how you swore to them by your own self, saying to them, I will multiply your descendants like the stars of heaven, and all this land that I have promised I will give to your descendants, and they shall inherit it forever. And the Lord changed his mind about the disaster that he planned to bring to his people. The Lord said to Moses, I'm at verse 30 now. On the next day, Moses said to the people, You have sinned a great sin, but now I will go up to the Lord. Perhaps I can make atonement for your sin. So Moses returned to the Lord and said, Alas, this people has sinned a great sin. They have made for themselves gods of gold. But now, if you will only forgive their sin, but if not, blot me out of the book that you have written. Our passage today begins with the words, when the people saw that Moses was delayed in coming down from the mountain, they went to Aaron and asked Aaron to make gods that would go before them when they went through the wilderness. Moses had gone up a long time before. 40 days and 40 nights, Scripture tells us. Now, 40 days and 40 nights is Scripture's way of saying a very long time. Moses had been away from his people. They had watched the fire and the smoke on the mountain before he left. As he went up and he disappeared into the smoke high above them, and they were afraid. They were very, very afraid, for he was their leader. He was the one that went in front of them as they went forward through a wilderness that they did not understand. They had not been at home, you see, all these years. They had been wandering in a strange place, a place that was frightening, that sometimes didn't have food, sometimes didn't have water, and always had surprises. And Moses had always been there with him, always. But now he was gone, and he'd been gone a very long time. So they went to Aaron. Aaron was second in command. And they said to Aaron, Make us gods. Give us something we can hold on to. Something we can look at as we go forward through this wilderness. Something that we can depend on, that won't go away as Moses did when he went up on that mountain and left us here alone without leadership, without God. Make us something that we can hang on to. And Aaron did. Aaron made gods of gold, a calf. And they took that calf and placed it in front of them and worshipped. The people were afraid. And they wanted something they could hang on to. And so they made a calf of gold. It was a big mistake, but understandable in the circumstances. You see, Aaron wasn't the leader that Moses was. Moses was a charismatic leader who trusted God in all things. Aaron was a pragmatic leader who wanted to get the job done day by day. Aaron was ready to make a god of gold, just so that he could calm things down, get the people to relax a little bit, prevent a riot. Aaron just wasn't Moses. So he did what they asked. And the people broke their covenant, their promise to God. Moses was still up on the mountain when this was happening, and God called to Moses one day, and his words were burning with wrath. And he said, those people, your people, have gone and made a god for themselves and are worshiping and sacrificing to it. Moses listened to this for a moment, and he said, did you say your people? Moses said, Those are your people too, God, not just mine. You're the one that called me to lead these people. I'm not the only one who claimed them. They are your people too. But God was not listening. God said, I want to go away by myself. Leave me alone, Moses. I want to go and be alone so my wrath may burn against the people, and I will consume them. Moses wasn't going to allow that. He kept the conversation going. He was pleading for the people. He was imploring God. He was trying to convince God through rational arguments that this wasn't the correct thing to do. Don't destroy these people, he said. Don't you remember? You made a promise to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. You can't be breaking your promises. And furthermore, what will the enemies of Israel think? If you go and destroy them, they'll just say, oh, look what God did to those people. They were no good to begin with. Are you going to allow that? Are you going to get a name as a God who breaks promises, who gives up the first time the people make a wrong move? Is that what you want to do? You see, Moses, this to me is one of the most amazing moments in Scripture because Moses had everything to lose that day. Did you notice that when God said to Moses, I want my wrath to burn and I want to consume these people, and then he turned to Moses and God said, but of you, Moses, I will make a great nation. Moses was offered a second chance to start a whole brand new nation, and he would be the leader. Moses did not have to worry about what was going to happen to him. He knew he was in good standing with God, and he knew God had said, I'll take you and I'll start over. Don't you think it would have been a lot easier if Moses would have said, oh, okay. It is kind of a bad day, isn't it, God? I think maybe we should just start over. I think we could do better the second time. Moses was not going to go there. And to my amazement, he also just threw himself at the wrath of God, which is something I doubt I will never do. And he pled for those people. He pled for them. He said in so many words, I don't want a new nation. I want this nation. I don't want a new people. I want these people, your people and my people. He kept it up. Do you see what a hero he was? Do you realize those people that were down there worshiping a golden calf, they never saw this conversation between God and Moses? Never. They did not know what Moses had done for them. But Moses knew. He knew that if those people went on forward into the wilderness without God's presence to accompany them, their fate would be much worse than it was under the Egyptians. He knew what kind of future that meant for them. He did not want that for them. He even asked God to forgive them. And did you notice that he said to God, if you can't forgive these people, my people, your people, if you cannot find it within yourself to give them forgiveness, blot my name out of your book. Now, we are not, in this congregation, for the most part, Jewish. But any person who is knows what that means. That book is the book of life that Moses said he could be blotted out of. We're not talking about God just taking away his physical life. Moses was offering to allow God to take away his life and every trace and memory of it, just to save those people. He was a leader. And he had his most faithful moment when nobody was looking. When he stood up to God and he offered himself and he pled for those people. And you realize those people were unfaithful to him too when they built that golden calf. But he stood right by them. His greatest moment of faithfulness was seen by no one except God. I believe that that's the way it is with us too. You know, in our culture, we kind of equate great faith with preachers who fill congregations, huge sanctuaries, who are known, published all over the world, who do great acts of deeds in front of large audiences, who have good press, whose works are known by all. Or sometimes we equate faithfulness with people ordained, like me. I'm ordained. But what about you? You are called as well. Many of you are as faithful or more than I am. But we equate faithfulness to things like this. Things we can see. Things that are sort of like a golden calf. Not the things that we can't see. Like that faithful moment that Moses had with God up on the mountain. Our greatest acts of faithfulness come when we are alone with God, pleading for the welfare of others. That is when our faith is at its strongest. Desmond Tutu once said, "Do what little acts of kindness and goodness that you can. Your life matters more than you know. For those small acts together will overwhelm the world." The hymn that we're going to sing in a moment is one of my favorites. And in that hymn are the words that may have passed between Moses and God. I, the Lord of sea and sky, I have heard my people cry. I have heard them in their sin, my hand will save. And then the chorus, here I am, Lord. Can you hear Moses saying it? Is it I, Lord? I have heard you calling in the night. I will go, Lord, if you lead me. I will hold your people in my heart. One whispered yes to God, saying, yes, I will hold one of your dear people, your people in my heart, could just hold the world together.